Hello. First things first, let me address what may or may not be the elephant in the room, and that is that I am sick. I just blew my nose, but you can probably still kind of hear it in my voice, and I just want to apologize, but given the fact that it is already October 12th and we're almost halfway through the month, I figured it was time. So welcome to my September reading wrap up. Given that I'm sick and I'm feeling a little bit worse for wear, also given the fact that the majority of these books were in reading vlogs at some point this month, including one that I filmed a vlog for and I haven't gotten up yet, but I'm gonna try and get up this week. I'm not gonna go into crazy depth, but I do just want to put it all in one place, so that's why I am powering through this sickness to film this today, get it up, and have it all documented. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the September stats. In the month of September, I read 7 books and had 1 DNF. As far as the genre breakdown goes, I read 1 romance, DNF'd it, 4 fantasy, 1 young adult horror / fantasy, 1 young adult thriller, and 1 literary fiction. I would say overall I had a very, very good reading month because I had an average star rating of 3.9. I read 6 out of the 7 books on my monthly TBR, which is really good, and I filmed my Can I Finish My Monthly TBR video because I tried to do all of them. Didn't quite make it, but I was close, okay? I was really close. I also read 2 out of the 24 books on my 24 in 2024 list, which is great because I hadn't made any progress like that in recent months. So that puts me at 12 out of 24. Not ideal. Not ideal. I have a lot of catching up to do if I want to finish before the year is over. So I'm gonna try and pick up the pace on that because I would really like to finish that list if at all possible before the end of the year. It might be a task for December me, but we'll see. And I also read 3,106 pages. All of the books I read, including the 70 pages of the book that I DNF'd. So that's it for the stats. Now let's go ahead and get into the books themselves. So the first reading that I did in September was actually my 24-hour readathon. So the next 3 books are all books that I talked about in that video. First of all, we have All In by Miss Jennifer Lynn Barnes, which is the 3rd book in the Natural series. This is the young adult thriller, and it follows a group of teenagers that are enlisted in the FBI to help originally with cold cases, but then ultimately with active cases that we follow with each book. Each of the kids has like a special ability of some kind, not like a superpower, but like, you know, Spencer Reed level eidetic memory, natural profiling skills, natural emotion reader, natural lie detector, etc. Actually, that's it. I just listed them all off. So it is basically Young Adult Criminal Minds. I have talked about this series multiple times on my channel, and I just won't stop because I truly, truly, truly love it. It is so much fun. Every single book, you become more emotionally attached to these characters and more invested in the outcome of what each book is going to be because there are little crumbs, little inklings of a larger overarching story that we are seemingly going to finally tackle in the final book. So I'm very excited, but I'm also really sad for it to be over. Like, I don't want to read the next book. I do, but I don't because I don't want it to be over because these kids are just, they're my family. They're my family. I love them. I love their found family. The way they are constantly like battling their own inner demons, but then also show up for each other in ways that make sense for each given person. I don't know. It's just so good. They know each other so well. They love each other. It's just really good. It's really cute. Really, really cute. And I'm really scared to read the next book because I have no idea. I am just really scared that I'm gonna lose someone, okay? That's just kind of where my mind always goes in the finale of a series like this, so I'm just nervous, okay? Would highly recommend if you like Criminal Minds and you like young adult mystery thrillers. I think I gave this one 4 stars, 4.5. I think I've given every single book in this series a 4.5. They're just so fun. They're so good. I think ultimately I would consider this one of my favorite young adult series that I've read for the first time as an adult, you know, compared to like my, obviously I have my beloved young adult series that I read when I was younger, but I love it. So next in the readathon, I picked up Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, which is an adult fantasy, dark academia vibes, reads very much like Secret History, just in prose style, and also in its sort of pretentious, obviously dark academia tone, I guess. I personally love Secret History. It's one of my favorite books, so I love books that read like this. Like people love to say, it does require a little bit of brain power, but honestly, when I'm in the mood for that, I love that kind of book. It is the first book in the Alex Stern series, and essentially we follow Alex Stern, who has been recruited by one of the most prominent secret societies at Yale to sort of take up a specific monitoring duty for them that she is specifically eligible for because she can see ghosts. She is approached for an opportunity to come come to Yale, take up this position, turn her life around, you know, become a more successful version of herself if she wants to. And she accepts the offer and she goes to Yale, and this basically follows her throughout her first year at Yale. We follow her back and forth in timelines between when she first gets there and is sort of learning the ropes, learning about all these secret societies, learning about the inner workings of them, what her specific role is, what her duties are, and then also flashing forward to the winter when clearly something has happened to the man that was mentoring her, teaching her the ropes. It's very interestingly plotted, and I just love Leigh Bardugo's writing. She's so good at world building without dropping a bunch of like exposition on you and just like letting you figure it out as you go along, and also just at creating plot where like all the puzzle pieces fall into place like at just the right moment. And I feel like that's what she did with this one. Really liked it. But yeah, this is very like dark, gritty, slow book. I will say I settled on, I believe, 4.25 stars, somewhere between 4.25 and 4.5. I think in the reading vlog I was leaning towards 4.5 because it is something that I like for days after felt like I was still in the world of this book. It's very immersive. It's just very dark. It's very haunting. I personally really enjoyed it. I can see this series ultimately ending up very high on my series list, and I'm excited to see how we continue to learn more about the characters. I like Alex. She's not like any other main character I've ever read about, and I'm excited to see more of the other characters, see how the relationships continue to grow. There was something that was like sprinkled throughout this one that never really took shape necessarily because of something that happened, but book 2 will definitely have more of it, and I'm very excited. So there's demons, there's ghosts, there's magic. Check trigger warnings if you feel like that's something you need to do, but I personally found it worth the read. It definitely feels like a book that won't be for everyone, but I had a great time. So book number 2. And then book number 3, I actually was reading this for most of the beginning of September. I just kind of got stuck. I think I got stuck around the 200 page mark, and yeah, I think it was like 232. That's where my bookmark is in here. And I just for some reason could not get myself to pick it back up. I don't know what it was, if it was just that it was getting a little bit slow. I don't really know why. But Cricket Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo, I picked up at the end of my readathon, read about like 20 or so pages, and then ended up finishing it in the days following, and I went ahead and included it in the wrap-up of the reading vlog. If you're unfamiliar, this is the second book in the Six of Crows duology that basically follows a group of 6 outcasts. In the first book, they band together to try and complete a heist for a big monetary sum to kind of turn their lives around. They're all teenagers, by the way, as young adults. And then this book obviously is the aftermath of the heist. Obviously things have gone awry in one way or another, and we are facing another set of challenges. So I will say once again, I love Leigh Bardugo's writing. She is so good at weaving pieces together, leaving little crumbs that all come together in such an impressive way. I realized towards the end of this book just how invested I was in all these characters in ways that I didn't realize that I was invested before. As we got towards the back half of the book, I was like, wow, if something happens to this character, because I was convinced that that was what was going to happen, I was like, I'm gonna be really sad. And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, wait, if any single one of these characters dies, I will be devastated. That's how you know. She did it in a very subtle way where it just crept in, and suddenly I was so emotionally invested in each of them, which I think is due in large part to the fact that we spend time in each of their perspectives, so we really get to know their inner world and we understand them each as people, and they all feel like complete, whole, fleshed out people, different from each other. It's just really well done in my opinion. I love all of them. I love Kaz, I love Inej, I love Jesper and Wylan. I love them. And Nina. I love them all, okay? I love them all, and that's an impressive feat. I ended up settling on 4 stars for this because I liked it more than Six of Crows, which is the first book, and I gave that 3.75 stars, so 4 stars felt fitting. I don't think this is like an all-time favorite series, but also I feel like it's something that maybe if I reread it in a couple years, now that I sort of have an understanding of the series as a whole, it might grow on me revisiting it again. You know what I mean? 4 stars. And then next up, I read this book in a single day, and I did not document any of it, but I did really enjoy the experience, and that is Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. I will say I started this on audiobook on my way to work the day that I decided to read it, and I didn't realize that on Spotify, if you have been listening to things on shuffle, when you start an audiobook, it will shuffle the chapters. So I did go from chapter 3 to like chapter 9, I think, and I listened to like 40 minutes of chapter 9 before I realized that I had skipped, because what's interesting about this book, just a basic literary fiction family drama story where a Chinese American family living in 1970s small town Ohio loses their eldest daughter. She's found dead, and we're sort of like picking the family apart, learning their past, exploring the present, and learning the nuances of all of their relationships with each other, and sort of getting to the bottom of what happened to her. So I didn't realize that I had skipped so far in the book, because the things I was learning, I was kind of like, whoa, those are crazy. They felt like natural pieces to follow things that had happened earlier, if that makes sense. I just didn't realize that I was supposed to have experienced 6 chapters in between. I think there's only 10 chapters total. So I did then go back, and I knew
way more than I should have for the rest of my read through, which was not ideal. And then I was kind of pissed off and I was like, do I even want to finish this? But it's so short. It's only 190 something pages that I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna power through. I've been wanting to read this for a long time. I know that I really like Celeste Ng's writing because I really like Little Fires Everywhere, and I wanted to give this a try. I will say though, it wasn't, although I really enjoyed the experience and I'm glad that I read it, I don't think it's necessarily a story that is going to stay with me long term the way like Little Fires Everywhere I think about it quite often. Maybe not like the details specifically because I just have a terrible memory in general, but like themes and the way that it made me feel are so specific. I don't think that's gonna be the case for this. It's already kind of left my consciousness if I'm being honest, but I do think that it was worth the read. Like I'm glad that I got to it. I initially gave it 4 stars when I finished it just because I really did enjoy it and I thought there were some powerful things sprinkled in there, but I don't think it's gonna stay with me long term, so I think I'm actually gonna settle on 3.5 stars for this. I enjoyed the audiobook, I enjoyed the themes, I enjoyed the reading experience overall. Just not an all-time fave. You know, like not a Hall of Famer, so. Next, I read House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland, which is in my fall reading vlog, okay? It should be coming out in the next couple days. I've just really been slacking on finishing it up, so. I did read this on camera and I talked about it in extreme depth, I'm pretty sure. I don't know because I haven't finished editing the vlog, so I don't really know everything that I said. I'm gonna be honest, I've only just started it. So, this is a young adult horror fantasy novel that follows the Hollow sisters. Iris Hollow is a teenager and her 2 older sisters who are unquestionably strange. They were kidnapped when they were very young, and when they were returned to their family, their blue eyes had turned black and their dark hair had turned white. And then as they grow older, weird occurrences sort of happen around them, and basically where this story picks up, Iris's oldest sister Gray goes missing, so they have to figure out what happened to her and ultimately uncover the truth of what happened to them when they were kids. So this is like a perfect read for October. I know we're already almost through the month, but like if you're looking for something fast-paced and kind of like dark fairy tale vibes, I would recommend this for this month. There are a lot of settings in this that are truly October feeling, so would highly recommend for this month. I went ahead and settled on 3.5 stars for this. I was somewhere between 3.5 and 3.75 because I did have a good time when I was reading it, but once again, it's just not something that had like that wow factor for me where I was like, I love this so much and it's above 4 stars, like I'm gonna be thinking about this for a long time. It was more just like I had fun while I was reading it and I thought it was a super interesting concept. But this is another one of those where it's really short. It's only 290 something pages, like low, 292 pages, and also like it's young adult, so like the font is big and the margins are big, and so it's another one of those where I honestly sort of felt like we could have been well served by having more time in the story, like more content. The pacing overall was just kind of weird, like the structure of the story and how the plot points played out was just a little bit weird to me in retrospect because we spent a lot of time in certain aspects and then what felt like not enough time in others. So that was interesting. And then also the characters were in many ways unlike any characters I'd read about before. It's weird because it felt very grounded in reality in the sense of oldest sister is a model and influencer, and so there were those elements in it which made it feel very unique. Like I never really read a horror fantasy with those like real life elements in it. But yeah, there were a lot of things that I enjoyed and that made it feel very different and very unique. It's just I think ultimately the execution was lacking a little bit in some aspects and I wanted like a little bit more from it. Still a very solid read. So we're gonna go 3.5 for this, I think. That's that. Okay, and then these next 3 were all in my can I finish my monthly TBR before the month is over. So I have in-depth real-time thoughts in that video. But first of all, I finally read Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, which was on my 24 and 2024 list that I made at the beginning of the year. If you've never heard of this, this is a new adult fantasy novel and a lot of people kind of say is very akin to like Divergent but with dragons, which I would say is a pretty accurate assessment. And overall, I had a really good time with this. I think in the moment I settled on 4 stars and I think I'm gonna stick with that for now. Who knows how I'll feel moving forward. The more analyzing I do of a read post-reading experience, it always like alters how I feel retroactively so much, and because memory is crap and my awareness of things fades so quickly, I then kind of am very easily influenced by thoughts and opinions that I read post reading experience. So I tried not to let myself do that so much with this because I knew this is a controversial book. From what I know, people either love it or hate it, and the people that hate it just say it's outright a bad book, but I personally had a really good time reading it. And when I say 4 stars, I'm not saying like this is like a perfectly written book. It's more just I had so much fun. Like I was binging the crap out of this. I was locked in. I was so invested. There were a lot of things that were maybe very tropey, very stereotypical, very like easy way out in terms of like world building, relationship building, conflict building, and resolution, if I'm being honest. But in the moment, other than like the tropey things specifically related to like the romance plot, none of it was
was actively like pissing me off or like dampening my reading experience. Do you know what I mean? I more was just having such a good time, which I think for me personally is a lot of what I look for in books that I really enjoy. I just like to be entertained. I love reading with an analytical eye, don't get me wrong, but I'm sometimes able to just go along for the ride and enjoy what's in front of me, and that is really what I experienced with this. So it's just always so interesting when people have such hot analytical takes that you read after the fact, but I think the fact that this was a fantasy book that was written for romance readers kind of explains to me a lot of the problems that I personally had with it. I said in the reading vlog, I just feel like we got a little bit heavy-handed with the romance. It was very like over the top simpy in my opinion towards the end, and I wasn't totally sold on like where they ended the book. Like I wasn't like I wasn't buying into it. Like I don't really believe where we ended up romance wise. So, and also like I said, there were just a lot of things obviously that reminded me of other books I've read, specifically Red Queen, which is just crazy because I really feel like Red Queen is the blueprint for so many of these really popular romantasy books. It's just so crazy to see the influence of that series or that main first book specifically. Ultimately where I'm landing with this for right now is I had so much fun, and like that was like a binge level experience that I haven't had with a book in recent memory. I have to give credit on entertainment value alone. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm standing on the hill saying this is the best book ever written, but I did really enjoy myself. I think that's all I can say for right now. Maybe I'll do a reread in the future and we will see if my opinion has changed, but that is where I'm standing for now. 4 stars. Next, I DNF'd a book. I DNF'd A Not So Meet Cute by Megan Quinn. This is a rom-com fake fiance situation where a billionaire, Huxley Kane, mind you. I didn't say this in the vlog. Why is his name Huxley? No offense to anyone named Huxley, but what? He needs somebody to pretend to be his fiance because he lied to a business partner and he wants to sign a deal with this man, and he only trusts him if he like thinks he's like a family man. And the girl, I'm pretty sure she just needs somebody on her arm when she goes to like her high school reunion. I don't know. I read 70 pages of this and I didn't like it. It reads like something that's primary purpose is the spice, which is totally fine, just not what I look for in romance books. And also just, we were going for rom-com, we were going for com. I personally was not resonating with it. Hey, at the end of the day, wasn't my cup of tea. I gave it a try. I gave it 70 pages. Wasn't enjoying it, and so I DNF'd it. So that's that. And then lastly, I read A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab, which this is my second V.E. Schwab book. I've read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and this is my second one. This is the first book in the Darker Shade of Magic trilogy, I believe. And basically the premise is that there are multiple universes, multiple worlds. They're very different, mainly in the sense that they each have different levels of magic accessible to the people that live in them. And they all overlap in London. They each have a London, regardless of how different everything else is in that world. They each have a London, and there are 2 people, Kel and Holland, that have the ability to travel between these worlds. And so it's kind of their job to deliver messages from the different royal families in each of these Londons. And there are 4 we learn about in this book. There's red, white, black, and gray London. And this, the main story follows Kel and this girl named Lila Bard that he meets along the way as they go on a specific journey to get rid of an artifact. It took me a little bit to get into, not a super long time. I was finding it hard to get really like gripped by the story. Then once I was in it, V.E. Schwab's writing is so good. It's very flowy. It's very easy to just go along with whatever's happening in the story that I was definitely locked in once I got myself further into the story. I just don't think that the actual plot that unfolds in this was necessarily one that I was obsessed with. And I also like, I thought that the idea of the world building was interesting, but it wasn't like the most crazy, elaborate, fleshed out, like tangible thing either. So all in all, just like a little bit underwhelmed, but I think the main thing that was underwhelming for me and why I wasn't like head over heels obsessed with this was that the characters felt a little bit flat, a little bit removed from me emotionally, which is the same way I felt in Addie LaRue, which is crazy. Very, very interesting, and I would love to do like an analytical deep dive as to why, but I just feel like we didn't learn that much about Kel, our main character's like inner life. Like I still don't really understand who he is necessarily as a person beyond he just never felt like he belonged and that he cares about his brother. So like beyond that, there wasn't like a crazy amount of like emotional depth that allowed me to like really connect with his character. And so yeah, it was just a very interesting experience. I liked Lila, but I also didn't feel like super connected to her, but there was a little bit more emotional nuance to her character and some things that she went through to where I was feeling for her, and I feel like I know her a little bit better than I know Kel. So I'm just interested to see if we're going to learn more about them and become more emotionally connected to them as the series goes on, because I do want to continue to read the series. I'm definitely planning on picking up the second book because I'm curious to see where we're even going to go from here. I think ultimately not a crazy new favorite, so once again I went with 3.5 stars. I'm gonna sneeze. I think ultimately I'm gonna go with 3.5 just because not like the most crazy, outrageous, fun fantasy I've ever read, but I did enjoy the reading experience once I really like locked in and got through it. So that is book number 7. I think overall I had a really solid reading month. Picked some things off my list that have been on there for a really long time, and also just was curating the fall vibes other than a not so meet cute. Like all the rest of them really felt perfect for this time of year, and I've kind of been slacking off on reading so far this month, which sucks because I love reading in October, but I just have been sick, and also I may or may not have accidentally started watching Vampire Diaries and now it's all I can do. I didn't need to be rewatching a show that I get way too sucked into. Like Vampire Diaries, PSA, is one of my favorite shows of all time. It will literally suck me in every single time. Like I'm already on season 2 and I started a week, 2 weeks ago. I have problems. I am going to be locking in because I have so many books I want to get to this month, and going through these just reminded me how much fun I had last month with taking things off my fall TBR. So anyways, that's gonna be it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!